Good evening and welcome. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Scarborough Town Council. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, and it is 7 p.m. At this time, Tody, could you please call the roll? The roll. I would like to do, that is why I was hung up, because I went off script. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, Tody, please call the roll.
Counselor Doherty.
Here.
Counselor Kane.
Here.
Counselor Fellows.
Here.
Counselor Donovan.
Here.
Counselor Anderson.
Here.
Counselor Chair Safford.
Here, thank you. Before we move on through our agenda this evening, I'm sure that our community has now heard the news of the tragic passing of our assistant principal, Jake Brown. I've known Jake for a long time. He was kind, and he was a tremendous asset to our community. It breaks my heart to have to do this, but at this time, if you would like to, I will be asking for a moment of silence to honor Jake. Thank you. And thank you all so much for being here and showing so much grace as a community. I know that the outpouring of love and support for the high school and for the staff, all of our professional staff, has been really wonderful. And so thank you to everyone. At this time, item 4 on our agenda is general public comment. If there is anyone in the audience wishing to make general public comment this evening on something that is not on our agenda, now is the time to address the podium. Please state your name and your address for the public record. Thank you, Jim.
Jim Pritchard, Maple Ave. Last Thursday, I attended the Finance Committee meeting, especially the conversation over stormwater fees. Listening to one counselor's explanation as to why she had that on her goals, it started out that she wanted to do something to get money from the nonprofits. Then she went to cutting down a lot of trees and having impervious surfaces. Then it went on to the maintenance costs of a vacuum truck. Over the weekend, I did a lot of thinking. The counselor is a member of the ordinance committee. I wonder if she got into the ordinance, talked with the staff as to whether nonprofits are paying a stipend in lieu of taxes. Did she get into the ordinances to see why the parking lots are so large, the trees are being cut down? As I remember that ordinance when it came up, it was based upon the square footage of the building and the type of business. And the one that really got me was her statement that it costs $100,000 a year to maintain the vacuum truck. Somebody that had to buy equipment and everything Plus, there was a gentleman in the audience that approached me after the meeting and told me I didn't know what I was talking about, that a vacuum truck is $700,000. I told him 350 to 400,000. If we have a department head, finance director, town manager, I'll use the $700,000 number, spending $300,000 more than the cost of the truck for maintenance, they're not gonna have a job very long. So over the weekend, I did some research. And I asked, the first question was, what is the cost of a new vacuum truck? I got 4 hits. For a standard vacuum truck, it's 150 to 300,000. For a liquid waste vacuum truck, it's 250 to 350. For a hydro excavation truck, it's 350 to 600,000. For a custom built truck, 400,000 to 800,000. I don't know of a municipality around that orders a custom truck. I have all this written down. I made copies for the council. But I think before we take and get the public all riled up, the council should take and do their proper research and find out why things the way they are. The one other area that concerns me is they kept referring to clean water. To my knowledge, there are only 2 brooks in the town of Scarborough that are deadheaded here. And that's the Phillips Brook and the Red Brook. The rest of the rivers and streams all come from out of town. Why would we want to spend taxpayers' money to treat something that's coming upstream from us? It just does not make sense. I'm over.
Oliva.
So I just feel that the council, before they put this stuff up, they do their homework, find out why things are happening, instead of just putting it out there, then throwing stuff out and grasping at straws. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to make general public comment this evening? Anyone online? Seeing none, I will close general public comment. Item 5 is the minutes from our September 3rd, 2025 Town Council meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? That's okay. That's okay. Councilor Doherty, we're voting on the meeting minutes. All those in favor? Thank you. I'll show that as unanimous. Thank you. Item 6 is adjustments to the agenda. There are no adjustments this evening. Item 7 is treasurer's warrants. I took care of those prior to the meeting. And item 8 is the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few quick items to touch on. Eastern Trail Close the Gap project is progressing quite nicely. Shaw Brothers Construction, who's the general contractor, has kind of pulled off the job for the season. They've completed all the work they can. They have some limitations based on environmental and regulatory limits, particularly around tree clearing, and so they'll remobilize in the spring. In the meantime, the bridge contractor has kind of stepped in their place and is advancing their aspects of the project. I've previously reported there's a drainage pipe, a private drainage pipe that goes under the CMP corridor, which the trail will be built on, particularly at the spot where there's a kind of an earthen ramp that goes up to the bridge over the railroad tracks. We have televised that line and determined that it is really in rough shape. And so I'm making efforts to meet with the property owner. In any event, we'll be replacing the section of pipe that we're going to be building upon to make sure that that section at least is new. But my hope is that we'll find some way to cooperate with the private property owner and build that entirely from where it begins to where it discharges on the other side of the tracks. The Scotto Hill road closure, obviously the road remains closed. As I've previously reported, due to environmental regulations, we can't do any work in that area until mid-November. And so that should be nothing new. It's been in that situation all summer and will continue. We are still evaluating different options in terms of final outcomes, whether it's to replace the culverts. We will have to upsize them. There is tidal flow in that, given its proximity to the marsh. And there's also other pipes just further upstream across Payne Road. This section of water actually goes right underneath Flaherty's Farm, their retail store. Again, we're considering all options, including the option of not reopening that road. And I appreciate that has potentially huge implications on our residents, on those that live on the road, but also for commuting purposes. And as I think about all the conversation lately about traffic, the thought of reducing one of our roads and options is certainly forefront. But nonetheless, I think this is the time that we need to be evaluating all options. We do intend and expect to engage the public in a conversation this fall before anything goes further. In any event, we don't have adequate budget to repair the culvert. And so in all likelihood, that situation will remain until we can come back to the council, probably during budget season next spring. But I'll continue to keep this on. I think it's a point of great interest, and we need to have a community conversation around it. With respect to the Sawyer Street, Spurwink Marsh, this is a cooperative project with the town of Cape Elizabeth. I was just doing a bit of homework. Cape Elizabeth has been talking about this for their part since 2015. In terms of collaboration, that really has been since 2022. There's been multiple joint meetings, so on and so forth. We are reaching the critical point, and what's the final piece that is contemplated would be a discontinuance of the road. And the intention would be to remove the portion of road through grant funding and restore that back to the Spurwink Marsh. For our purposes, we've scheduled a meeting for next week on the 24th to kind of re-engage the public. It's been about a year since we've done that. And Cape Elizabeth is having a workshop on October 8th. I think we're both anxious to get through those dates and see what the reception is. But again, the next step would be to go through the discontinuance process. As we're all aware, perhaps, DOT is doing a lot of work in town as we speak. We have 3 bridges under construction with disruption to traffic. Mitchell Hill Road is still closed. They're about midpoint of that project. It's right on schedule. In fact, tomorrow and Friday, they'll be putting in the new culverts. And so they're moving ahead very briskly. Pleasant Hill Road will be closed this coming weekend, the 19th through the 22nd. There will be complete road closure of Pleasant Hill Road. And they do have a backup weekend should they need it, but they're hopeful to get their work done this coming weekend. And then Spurwink Bridge over the Spurwink River, that thankfully is not full closure. There's alternating one-way traffic, but I would encourage you to avoid that area if you can. I know there's not many other easy routes going in that direction, but do expect delays. With respect to one of our projects, this was a project that's been around for a couple of years, the Spurwink Road improvements. This would be phase 2, picking up where we left off at Pleasant Hill Road and continuing all the way down to the Cape Line. It's a bit of a different treatment to that section of road, not with sidewalks, but with more healthy shoulders and other site improvements. We'll be going out to bid this in October, and the expectation with the additional funding is that we'll be under construction next spring and be out of the way before the summer season. Another project, just to give you an update, was a water quality project on Route 1. We've chosen a segment essentially from Scarborough Downs Road back to, it's not to Commerce, it's to Millbrook, I think the name of it is. This is to really do improvements within the existing island in Route 1. It also will provide some aesthetic improvements, we hope. We found that our budget is woefully inadequate, and we only had one bidder, and maybe that's why it was so high. So we're going to try to go back out to bid next month and see if we can drum up any more interest. But if not, that project will likely come back to you and for conversation next budget. A few final things. I found this interesting. I thought I'd share it with you. From a community services point of view, this is one of their high seasons. They're back in school. Their youth programming, fall programs are up and running. We have 235 participants in our before and after care and 52 on the waiting list. And that's nothing new, although those numbers are fairly high. We're at capacity, obviously, with the waiting list. And we really wish we could find a way in the future to fulfill all the need in this community. Another one is youth soccer, which has been a staple of what community services does, and we're at an all-time high at 580 participants. So every square, every green patch in town is used most nights, I think. Animal control ordinance. This council, really, the ordinance committee spent some time talking about this in the spring and summer. That was defeated, and there was some interest in learning more about certain aspects of that proposal. To that extent, we did track very carefully activity with the park rangers over the summer, our animal control officer in the summer reserves at the beach. I do have a report. I'll share that with the council that just relates particularly around incidents or interactions, I should say, with people and dogs and sand. The other piece that the council's resolved is asking a question of our community in the upcoming community survey. So I think it makes sense to see those results before we advance any changes. And we still have time. It really doesn't take effect until next spring, and practically speaking. Few final things. Recognition of conserved lands. You may recall back in April, we unveiled our barometer, if you will, filled with sand. Since then, this council has approved another 60 acres for conservation. You have on your agenda this evening an additional 60 acres. And then there's 2 projects that have been recommended just last week to the Parks and Conservation Land Board. So we have a choice. We can either do something sooner, or we could wait until and do it all at once. I might suggest we try to do it in 2 pieces, really to give Council Chair Seither an opportunity to pour the sand in one last time. So we'll plan for that in an upcoming meeting. And lastly, 2 final things. Just learned today that Autumn Spear, our planning director, has been appointed to a statewide impact fee working group. So very pleased that Scarborough is going to be represented at the table. Please recall that Nick Cloutier, our assessor, is on a similar working group, but this is for property tax relief. So I'm really pleased that we're recognized as good contributing members, and so much so that we have a seat at the table. So I'm pleased that we have that level of representation. And lastly, with the news today that the Federal Reserve cut the interest rate just 0.25%. I believe it's the first cut in the last 12 months or so. It doesn't sound like much, but as we contemplate major capital borrowing coming up here, it is meaningful. All of our financial models assumed an interest rate of 3.75%. We think, based on past experience, we tend to borrow at a rate 60 to 70 basis points below the 10-year Treasury yield. And that would put us between 2.5% and 3.5%. When we're talking $140 million, that's serious money. So at this point, I'm not suggesting that we kind of recast those models and try to re-educate, but I think it's really important to say that financing costs are very likely to be less than what we're projecting. And I think that's an important point to make here, and as often as we can between now and election. And with that, we're going to do something a little different this evening with Matthew Keith. Matthew is a member of the SBAC 2 Communications Committee and wanted to take a few moments to give us a little tutorial on all the different resources available for the school project.
Just gonna get the screen sharing going for a sec here. Thanks for your patience.
Matthew, you want me to put timer on so you can? No, please.
Okay, we should be good there. Thanks for the opportunity to come out and share. My name is Matthew Keith. I'm representing the SBCC today, which is School Building Communications Committee. This committee was formed after all the long hard work of SBAC 1 and SBAC 2. And after SBAC2 finished their hard work, they disbanded formally. And so under the school district, the School Building Communications Committee picked right off where the Communications Committee prior left off. And so I'm representing them, just sharing some of the hard work we've put in to revamp the website, get all up to date for the referendums coming up. And so much hard work has been put into it. It's taken the whole entire team. Shannon and Elizabeth are here. They've been some of the tireless leadership at the helm. And I've taken on the website as sort of a personal passion project of mine. So I'm excited to be able to be here and share with you all. You can access the website a couple different ways. You can go right to it, scarboroughschools.org/building-project. But more realistically, most people would probably search Scarborough Schools. From any page on Scarborough Schools, you'll see the building project at the upper right-hand side. You can just click right into that, and that will get you to this landing page. From this landing page, right at the top, you see the questions, comments, or volunteer interest. Right on that contact us button, best place to reach out with any feedback or just to get in touch with the committee for anything. And one thing before I get ahead of myself that I just want to make very clear is the information on this website and the School Building Communications Committee. Our charge is just to be fact-based, sharing information. We don't, as part of our charge, we don't support a vote one way or the other. I'm just really trying to get the information out there in the best way possible so voters can be informed. So when you scroll down, you'll see right on the landing page, this informational flyer pretty much has all the information you need if you just want to get a quick information hit. Right here has the referendum breakdown, what's in each high level, some other valuable information on the side. When you scroll down, you'll see the featured news. These are like blog sort of things that will get posted on there. If anybody wants to keep up to date with that, there's this little bell icon here, kind of hard to see. You can click on that, and that will allow you to sign up to be notified when a new blog post comes about. Oh, sorry, I'll try to scroll slower so people who watch don't get a little dizzy there. And so the next thing would be the About the Project page. This general about section will kind of walk you through the history of the school building committee and some general information about the project. Then we have a why now that gives some context about the need, about why this is important now. And so this goes into detail there. And then you have for each school an individual flyer that really shows the breakdown of the site plan, which is really helpful, especially for parents of specific schools. And really shows a lot of the thoughtful work that's gone into it, as well as some visuals that show direct examples of the need. So I won't go through each one, but each school has one of those. And then really important to highlight, there is a tax impact calculator. So for anybody interested about a general estimate, as Tom was saying, this doesn't account for the rate change. This is from the previous rate. And this is only for referendum 1. So when you click down here at the 2025 school tax impact calculator, that'll take you to a separate site that will allow you to plug in your exact home assessed value and get an estimate on, and it's really comprehensive. It'll give you a breakdown year by year, just to get a general sense for what that might be. One thing that's important to note is once you've navigated to one of these other pages, in order to get back to the main page to click into something else, you just got to go right back up to the building project here, or you can also click right here on this Scarborough School Building Project. And so next is meeting and events. This is pretty straightforward. We have a calendar here. It'll show you all the places that we're going to be. You can see we're at a bunch of open houses today. We have the community center coming up, and I will update this with some more. I know we are at the farmer's market too. So we'll make sure to get more things up there. But if you want to see where we're going to be, this is the place. And this is a great place to, if you want to look at past meetings, this goes way back to all the SBAC process. So for anybody like me who wants to deep dive, it's all there. Back to the main page, the frequently asked questions. This is, I think, where most people are going to really find a lot of good information. And we've really redone it to try to make it as simple and easy to access and clear as possible. So you can see specific schools. If you click into that, you'll see each school, and you can click into each one and get more information on that school. Voting info, if you want to know, what exactly are the 2 referendum questions, those kind of things. Community involvement. So it's pretty straightforward to see where that information might be. This is another great place. If you see a question that's not on here and you'd like it to be on here, feel free to reach out at that contact us button at the top. We'd love to hear as many different questions you have and to get as many up here as we can to help make sure everybody can get answers to their questions. And then finally, the presentation and documents page has, once again, this goes all the way back to the 2 SBACs from before. So if anybody wants to know, what was all the history or what is happening now, the different flyers we have, they're all in here. And yeah, that's the general layout of our website. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on it?
Questions for Matthew? No?
Cool. Oh,
Larry, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just want to say between Matthew, Elizabeth, and this communication committee has been phenomenal. It's a group of about 10 people and then a series of volunteers as well. And I appreciate that most of the counselors here have joined the open houses and helped get this information out. But I really can't tell you how hard these guys are working. They're all volunteers, and the amount of the volume of what they've put together and can put out to communicate this project is really fantastic. And Matthew touched on a couple of things, but they've got sandwich boards outside the sporting events. There's a sign right here in the lobby of Town Hall. There's signage in each of the schools so that people coming in and out of the school can get a scope of the program at all. So I just want to give them the kudos because it's a really fabulous effort. So thank you.
thanks, Larry. And that reminded me, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that if anybody hearing this is interested in getting involved, we can use volunteers from all levels of joining the committee and getting really active to hosting an event. We have all the information you need. You can always tell people you don't know and point them to the contact us, as well as knocking on doors. So if you have any interest at all, don't hesitate to reach out and get in touch. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. This is really excellent. And I think speaks volumes to the fact that we acknowledge that this is a community question. This is not just a school community question. And so all of this outreach and all of these efforts are being made because we recognize what this request could possibly mean to so many in our community. And so thank you so much to all of the volunteers and our school staff for recognizing that this is something that, our community can really truly rally around, and for providing all of the residents with the information that they need to make an informed vote. Does anyone have any questions for Tom on his town manager's report this evening? Yeah, Councilor Doherty, go ahead.
Just had one comment about the roads and stuff, every time we get together, he brings it up and he's wondering, and we are gonna ask the people. I'm leaning towards keeping the roads. I think especially the one by Flaherty Farm for transportation with traffic at Dunstan and stuff. I think that would be it lets them cut through the industrial park traffic light. The other one at Cape Elizabeth is just a sentimental thing. But I don't know, see what the people say about that. But I'm leaning towards keeping the roads. I think it costs almost as much to get rid of them as it does to keep them. Of course, once you get rid of them, you don't have to maintain them. So it's obviously cheaper, I suppose. But thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Great. At this point, I will move on through the remainder of our agenda. Order number 25-081 is a 7 PM public hearing and second reading to repeal Chapter 401 Town of Scarborough Ordinance adopting the 2000. I am off my game this evening. Again, I've now completely skipped over item 9, which is standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. At this time, I will ask for committee reports, and I apologize. I'm someplace else. John, thank you.
So last week we had a pretty busy finance committee meeting. One of the items is on the agenda today for the property tax assistance, so I'll let Larry tee that one up when we get to that agenda item. We also spent some time looking at school impact fees, and so this is a similar exercise we did last time when the school went out to bond. So if the school passes, we'll get an order that will put forward impact fee changes to consider the bond value and the interest of the school. It was a really good exercise. We're assuming about 20.7% of the debt would go towards impact fees or could be applied towards impact fees. There's still a little bit of work to be done that we asked staff to go back and revisit some of the modeling in terms of the percentages that were applied to different housing types. So that's one area where when we looked at it, we felt like some of the percentages that were applied were pretty low to make sure that as we grow, we're applying the right percentage to each type of dwelling unit, just because we don't charge the same fee for everything, because like a single family home typically would get a larger impact fee than a 2-bedroom home. And so we just asked that staff go back and revisit that and come back with a different recommendation. But it's really great to see, as we talk about paying for the school and even the debt, not everything will come directly from property taxes. These impact fees that we would set would go to new development that would have to pay things that wouldn't come from taxpayers. So I just want to make sure residents understand. It's kind of complicated when you think about it, but it's just, there's other sources of funds that will come into the town over the course of the bond, so it won't be as impactful. And that information, I think, is not contemplated in the model as well. So the model is really conservative in terms of impact. But if it passes, then the council will have the opportunity to vote this forward and work on it. The other thing that we worked on was better understanding the shelter benefit from TIFs. And so, again, this is extremely complicated. And I think both Karen Martin and Nick Cloutier have a PhD in TIFs because it's just so complex in terms of how the timing works for the state funding formulas. Like, it's not very clear cut, but the bottom line is, based on their assessment, in FY26, the TIF will save taxpayers approximately $1.5 million from that shielding benefit. And that's really the result of getting more state revenues from the state from shielding new value and paying less county taxes. And so that's how that's figured out. The interesting part is, because of the timing of how things are calculated at the state level in terms of value, we're still looking 2-3 years back, and our TIF fund hasn't really seen a lot of value until recently. So, and it doesn't contemplate the revaluation that also impacts shielding in the TIF zone. So we're looking to probably have sizable savings in the near future as the calculations catch up, which is really great. We did talk, and again, the bottom line for what we were seeing in FY26 is that essentially for every dollar of new value, we're saving 22 cents on the dollar. So that's the TIF sheltering benefit when we put TIFs out in town. The one thing we talked about as a next step is to, with this information, look at our current capture rate and value for our different TIF districts to see, what the model would look like if we changed our capture value right now, which is at 100% lower, which would put more money back into the general fund. That led to a really interesting conversation that we had really about policy around TIF revenues. It's been our practice, not in written policy, that we essentially spend all the TIF revenues that we collect every year. But part of the TIF development program allows us to actually put that money aside for other projects. So a lot of needs for transportation or infrastructure improvements are needed, and those take time to raise the money. So in theory, the council could decide as part of the budget process to keep the money in the TIF fund with the eye of using those dollars towards building a fund to pay for expensive infrastructure projects. So I think that's something, especially as the TIF revenues grow, the council will want to explore to figure out, do we want to change the capture value or do we want to save some money for future big investments? And so I think we're getting to that point where I think at the next council, that will probably be a topic that we'll start to have to really have those conversations. We also talked about stormwater management fees, as was discussed. And again, just as a reminder, our goal was to explore the pros and cons of establishing a stormwater fee, and we're not committing to do anything. From my perspective, and from a pros perspective, I would say the benefit of a stormwater fee is that it creates equity to property owners based on the impervious surface that they have. So today, we're really charging them just through their home value based on property taxes. And so that's, if you think equity is important as it relates to paying your fair share on something, this fee would allow for something like that. As mentioned earlier by the public commenter, only 1.3% of impervious surface is coming from nonprofits in town. So it's a relatively small number, but at least today, those organizations aren't paying anything. So that does help a little bit, but it's only 1.3%, so it's relatively small. And while the fee can't cover everything related to the vulnerability assessment, there are portions of, if we ever implement some of those projects, that a fee could help to pay for. So that's what I would say were probably the pros. The cons are, in Maine, where communities tend to usually do something like this, is where they have a major infrastructure challenge where they have combined water and sewer. And I think based on state and federal regulations, they're being pushed to separate the two. And so those are sizable investments. So that's why most communities like Portland, Lewiston have done this, is because they are essentially required under federal law. And because it's such a big sizable chunk, they've elected to pursue a separate fee. Another con, while we would potentially get new revenues coming in from the 1.3% of nonprofits, most impervious surface, the majority is actually still with residents. And so there would actually, in totality, be a tax shift from commercial to residents to pay more than they are today. And also just politically, just seeing what other towns do and how they react to it. It's just a huge change management challenge, and it's viewed often as a rain tax where it's implemented and can be very politically challenging. And so, it's not a small thing to do something like this, or something that if the council were to go forward, would want to do fast at all. And then also a lot of the conversation was, we have low impact development ordinances in the works right now because of our MS4 permit that might actually be a better way to address stormwater concerns than implementing a fee. And so my personal conclusion that I shared was I felt like the cons outweighed the pros, and really this fee feels more like a solution looking for a problem in Scarborough, and not something that I think the council should pursue at this time. We did agree to have a little bit more data. I don't think that data is going to change my perspective, but we agreed to just see like what the fee, if it was implemented, would cover. Again, our town is small where this fee would apply, and so it's probably not worth it. But I think the better conversation was where we talked about, as was mentioned earlier, the Phillips Brook watershed and the Red Brook watershed, where we could go a little bit faster with our investments. And so that might be more of a conversation for goal setting for the next council if we want to invest faster in stormwater improvements. But in terms of the fee, at the next finance committee meeting, I'm sure what I would like to do is vote with a recommendation to cancel moving this forward and say we completed the goal by exploring pros and cons.
Thank you, John. That was a lot.
Yeah, it was a good meeting.
Larry, do you have anything to add to the finance discussion? I know John just used all the words in the English language, but if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I remember it was a nice day. No, I'm pretty much in alignment with John on it. I felt like whether the funding to pay for stormwater projects was coming out of the property taxes or a separate fee, it felt a little bit like it was just another bucket to put the funds in. And my comment at the time was more, I think what we're looking at is, and John mentioned it, that should we be investing or accelerating current stormwater projects? So instead of figuring out how to move money around, we'd be saying, how do we want to prioritize these projects? And that obviously would mean a bigger investment. And so that would be more the decision I'd be interested in exploring about, is there a priority and an urgency to this where we should be putting more resources towards?
Okay. And the reason I'm glad that John, I tease, but I'm glad that John took a deep dive into this because it does relate to a council goal. And if you're not on the finance committee, this is not something that the rest of us have seen or talked about publicly. And so it's a lot to take in. Other counselors, if you have the opportunity to watch the finance committee meeting, they did have a very robust conversation around this. And I will wait for your next update after your next meeting to see whether this is something that we're going to continue to try and pursue, but it's sounding like at the very best case scenario, this is going to be something that needs to be carried over into the next council. Councillor Donovan. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Coming out of summer, really not much to report. Nothing on the appointments committee. The session at Higgins Beach on vulnerability was a good session. I'm glad we did it. A lot of concern expressed because of the storms that have hit us in recent years that have raised risks as to that. And I expect we'll be looking at that more closely in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellows?
Thanks. Just picking up on Bill's comment about vulnerability assessment. I attended the meeting at Pine Point last week, and similarly, there's we've seen the presentation as a council. It was very well done, and it was well attended. It was a good conversation. There were some interesting points and questions around sort of what the town can do versus the state and the federal government. Questions around things like dune restoration and the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers is kind of the ultimate arbiter of where that material goes when there's dredging. So a lot of interest and sort of combination of conversation. There was conversation about shorter and longer term mitigation considerations. So it's good to see that there's good engagement on that. With Karen not here, I can give a brief update on ordinance. We met last week. Two of those items are on this agenda, so I won't go into too much detail. There's an item on temporary signage, as well as the performance standards for the light industrial zone around the landscape contracting use. There's also some more discussion about the short-term rental ordinance. This council determined last time we discussed it as a full group that there was a desire to send it back to ordinance, and then through ordinance to staff to really focus on a registration only approach. As it turned out, there were some feedback that the fire department wanted to provide, and Chief Kinlan had been unable to attend the previous ordinance committee meeting in July. So he and the deputy chief attended the ordinance committee meeting and spoke, I think, pretty eloquently and convincingly, at least for me, about in their view, the importance of having at least an initial inspection component. Not something that would have to be done regularly or every year, but something that at least at the outset, when the registration system is put in place, there could be initial inspections, and it would be framed largely initially as an education effort, and is not meant to be punitive or to have fees associated with it or anything like that. So we agreed as a committee to have staff spend some more time looking at that, and I think one of the recurring themes is we don't feel a need to rush any of that, particularly where we are on the calendar right now. So just wanted to brief everyone on that and how that's continuing to evolve somewhat. There was some understandable sentiment from some public commenters who are owners and managers of short-term rentals that, this conversation has gone on for quite some time, and, there've been multiple ordinance committees that have looked at it. And so I think there is a consensus that it's definitely appropriate to sort of button it up one way or another reasonably soon, and to hopefully have it completed, at least this version of it implemented before the council changes again, so that we don't have to sort of keep revisiting it. But as we discussed it, the intent is to start with that registration process and then see where we go from there. The Rules and Policies Committee met on the 8th. We were joined by members of the school board and others from the school department, and we talked about a policy for school facility naming, which is something that's been kicked around a little bit over time. And the takeaway from that was that the school folks will sort of take the lead on that, and the understanding is that that will be a school policy, but there will be something built into the policy that calls for council approval of anything before something is officially named, and there will be a vetting process. So the expectation is that'll be worked on over the next couple of months, and we'll have the goal of trying to get something in front of the full council by the end of the year. The Long Range Planning Committee met on last Friday. They did an interactive planning exercise, just kind of looking at different uses and scale considerations around different parts of town, just kind of really taking a step back, trying not to think about existing uses or zoning, but really thinking more fundamentally about how different parts of town work and could work. So that'll continue going forward, and will evolve over time. And the planning board met on Monday night. They had a relatively light agenda for a change, which was nice for them, I'm sure. There were a couple of minor subdivision approvals and amendments. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Kane?
All right, so if I start with communications, the survey final draft is done. It is I believe it's at ETC, which is the CERT company running that for us or developing that for us, and they're doing some final layout specifications, kind of to just make sure we added some things at the end to just make sure everything fits okay. They do, from their professional view, they have some concern that it's up to 8 pages long, and that that's long for a community survey. Personally, I think that's okay, because a lot of these questions are repetitious from the previous survey, so people will be familiar with them, and we're purposely doing that to be able to get data around improvements or not from 2 years ago and 4 years ago. That will go out by the end of the month, and Liam, correct me on any of this, but the initial mail out is about 4,000 households, and the statistically valid result, which will be the amount they need to where they have faith in the data, is 600 returned. And then there will be some availability kind of after they receive that, and they'll certainly take more. They'll take as many as they can get, but that community members who did not receive part of that random group of 4,000 households will have an ability to still fill out the survey and get that data into us. I'm not sure exactly the mechanics around how somebody will get that, if we're
Yeah, so just historically, so we have the initial survey mailed. We get back, and once we have the 600 plus surveys back for the statistically valid portion of it, then we open up a separate link for anyone who would like to participate. That data is purposefully kept separate, and it's usually delivered shortly after the official report with all of the tracking. So we've historically, the town has actually done all the outreach for that and all the publication and promotion. So that is what we'll do again this year.
Good. And Matthew Keith mentioned for the school communications that I don't know if he gave the specific dates, but there are two public forums as of now that were similar if you attended any of the ones as we were developing the school project. One will be at 8 Corners School on October 7th, and there's one here on October 21st. And those are obviously open to the public and online as well. Like I spoke of earlier, and Matthew did as well, is we're trying to get that information in people's hands just in every single way we can think of. And this public forum, I think, is one of the better ways because there's also the ability for people to, rather than just consuming the information, they can ask questions and ask for clarification on things. And so that I think will be a really valuable aspect to the whole effort. Community services, I was not able to attend the first meeting that I would have gone to for that. I had a conflict with finance committee, which is something I'll have to figure out because that's going to come up every other month. And so I'll work with Trish Brigham, who's the chair of that, and see if I can work some timing out to improve that. And yesterday had my first meeting as a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to be attached to that. I was a small business owner for 35 years. And I'd like to think that we could build some better collaboration between the aspects of the town and what we're doing and how we can work with the business community. And I'll work with Karen Martin on that as well, kind of for her input. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Doherty?
Yeah, the harbor committee, I zoned out on that. I had a note on my table and I didn't get there. I got busy at home. I didn't make it, but I was probably punished for that, but I don't think it was really that. I think it was politically. I've grounded my boat out on Ferry Beach all my life, and every fisherman down there for the last 100 years has, in the same place. Proud's Neck Yacht Club lines up their sailboats to launch them, in the spring and take them out in the fall. And I've had the harbor master has stopped at my house now 5 times. And every time he comes, he's either got a fee, another fee he's going to charge me. He decided he was going to charge a mooring fee for the float that's down there for all the commercial fishermen. And we use it, we fix it up. The taxpayers, it cost them nothing. We do it ourselves. We don't ask the taxpayers to pay for it. The kids use it all summer. They use it more than we do probably. But I have to pay the mooring fee on that. And then the mooring fees going up the way they were, and then the mooring fee for the, is basically an increase for the pier fee. And I don't use the pier at Pine Point. I'm on Ferry Beach side. Taxpayers, again, don't pay anything. The other day, I was furious. He stopped one more time. And he told me that I couldn't ground my boat out in that spot. And I flipped out on him. I told him to get out of my yard, get out of my house, get away from me, stay away from me, and don't speak to me ever again. This is ridiculous. I think it's political. I want to cut the budget, and probably it's his budget. Yes, his is probably top on the list, especially now.
Councilor Doherty.
This is my chance to get to the public, and I've thought about this for a long time, but I'm going to do this now, right in public, and call them out right here, because this is the
Councilor
way to
Doherty,
do it. And
Please do
Okay.
not say something disparaging about our staff.
I
I
ain't
can
gonna do things
appreciate,
behind closed doors. It's gonna be right out in the open. He's doing this, is what he's doing, and I'm furious about it. And it should stop. And, you know, he's the employee of Tom, and as far as I'm concerned, Tom is harassing me too. And, you know, the Scarborough Police and Fire, you know, he's connected to them. I mean, I want this to stop. This is ridiculous, what he's doing. That's it, I'm done.
thank you, sir.
Counselor, if you have an issue with anyone on my staff, I certainly expect you'll bring that up with me directly.
I just did.
Well, this is not the time or the place for it, so
Well, this is not my.
I'll be reaching out to see if we can have a meeting.
Thank you,
I
Tom.
brought this up a few times.
Thank you,
and
Counselor
nothing's
Doherty.
been done. Nothing's been done.
For me, in terms of committee reports or liaison reports, thank you all for your work. I know that getting back into the fall schedule is hectic for many of us. Counselor Kane, you have been just right on the ball, and I appreciate so much you're able to participate and jump right in with 2 feet. So thank you for everyone for your work these last few weeks. I know it's a lot to ramp back up after a lovely summer of fewer meetings. From me, just for the council's awareness and for the public awareness, we are planning our first of the 2 growth workshops to really kind of dive deep as a council into this subject and see if there are some advances that we can make towards our council goal, but more just engage with each other and engage with the community on this topic of growth. And we have scheduled that first one for our second meeting in October. And so we are working, John and I are working with staff to make sure that we have some data to present and kind of aligning the council and staff expectations just in terms of what we can present to the public and try and be really as clear as we possibly can. I think that is all from me. Anyone else? Okay, now I will move on through the remainder of our agenda. Order number 25-081 is a 7 p.m. public hearing and second reading to repeal Chapter 401 Town of Scarborough Ordinance, adopting the 2003 International Building Code, repeal Chapter 401A Town of Scarborough International Residential Code, repeal Chapter 401B Town of Scarborough International Mechanical Code, and adopt a new Chapter 401C Building Code Ordinance and amend Chapter 405 Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 9G Certificate, 4G Certificate of Occupancy, and Section 7B to amend administrative titles and include reference to MUBEC. And we have our town planner here. Thank you, Autumn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This came before you all at your last meeting for first reading. Since then, we held our public hearing at the planning board this previous Monday. We did not have any public comments at that meeting. We did, however, have a general comment from our planning board that they would like to urge you all to consider the stretch code in the future. This particular ordinance update is really a house cleaning update, but in April of this year, MUBEC, the state required us all to update our codes to 2021. And the stretch code is typically another energy code version, but in this case, it is a simpler version that would require 15% more energy efficiency. And so at this point, while passing that on, I do want to point out that we are about to undertake a climate action plan, and during that process might be a good time to consider the stretch code. That's all I have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Autumn? Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Show that as unanimous. Thank you. Order number 25-083 is a 7 p.m. public hearing and action on the renewal request for junkyard permits pursuant to Title 30A MRSA Chapter 183, Speedway Auto located at 434 Payne Road, SVR New England LP doing business as Scarborough Recycling located at 40 Holmes Road, and Goldstein Steel located at 36 Running Hill Road. These are coming to us from the clerk's office.
Yes, this is the annual renewal of these licenses. And the zoning administrator provided a memo, which he did inspect for our establishments. The last one, A. Gagnon and E. Perry Iron and Metal, we have not received their application. And we're not quite sure if they're still in business. So the clerk's office is pursuing avenue to see if they're still. So that's why they were removed from the agenda. But they do recommend that the other three be approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Council discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? I show that as unanimous. Thank you. Order number 25-0484 is a 7 p.m. public hearing and action on the new request for an innkeeper's license for Home a While located at 205 Southborough Drive. This is also coming to us from the clerk's office.
Yes, again, this is a new application which requires a public hearing and action before the council, and is being recommended that this be approved.
Is there anyone wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Show that as unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to old business. Order number 25-082 is first reading and schedule a second reading to approve the expenditure in the amount not to exceed $470,000 from the Land Acquisition Reserve Fund to assist Scarborough Land Trust in purchasing 60 acres located at 244 Beach Ridge Road, identified by the Scarborough Tax Assessor's Map R012 Lot 004, as recommended by the Parks and Conservation Land Board, and authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents as are necessary to protect the town's interests. And we have someone from the Parks and Conservation Land Board here with us. Welcome.
Hello, Jessica Sargent, 221 Beach Ridge Road, Chair of PCLB. I know that this is second reading and you've heard the presentation at the last meeting. Wanted to be here in case you had any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anyone that has questions for Jessica? Seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this item? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Council discussion. Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? I show that as unanimous. Thank you. New business, order number 25-085, first reading and refer to the planning board, the proposed amendments to chapter 405 zoning ordinance, section 9 performance standards, and section 21B light industrial district LI to establish and apply performance standards for landscape contractor uses in the light industrial district. Welcome, Autumn.
Thank you. At your meeting at the end of August on the 20th, you approved a new use landscape contractor to be taken out of the contractor's yard, and you applied that to the Running Hill District. During that whole process, which was quite lengthy with Long Range Planning Committee and Ordinance Committee, a series of performance standards were created for landscape contractor uses. And at that meeting, it was requested by the public in the light industrial area that those same performance standards be applied to the landscape contractor use in light industrial. And so what you have before you is a simple amendment adding a new section for performance standards that would apply simply to landscape contractor in the LI district. This will go to the planning board for public hearing at our August 20th meeting.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Autumn? All set. Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this item? Oh, it's okay.
Hi, Denise Hamilton, Two Rod Road, and this will be brief because you heard me speak at the last town council meeting during public hearing as well as ordinance. And I appreciate the quickness in bringing this back forward. I would just ask in the future, don't overlook the light industrial. We seem to get the short end of the stick. And I just appreciate this being brought forward again. And I just wish it wasn't wasting all the time again, but thank you.
Thank you.
Nina McKee, 309 Black Point Road. I have to admit, I am really lazy when it comes to trying to get through the ordinance. That's really quite a document. And so I might be out of line. Just tell me, when you talk about landscaping ordinance, does that include trees? Is this to do with landscaping in building?
Not this particular ordinance. This has to do with folks operating landscaping companies.
Okay, so that I'll have to hang on to that for another time.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Council discussion. Yeah, Councilor Donovan.
I was really glad that we heard from the public to bring this up, because I only failed to speak in support of it at that time because I wasn't really sure I fully appreciated the issues involved. But I think this was a good effort on the public's part to bring to our attention something that I thought was an important amendment.
Any other council comment? Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, like I said before, I think it's a great thing for independent businesses to be able to do it. I don't know why I think we should probably just open it up for anybody anyway to be able to have a landscaping business out of their home, as long as they don't have employees. If it's just household family members, I think any business, there's all kinds of little enterprises. I think people, they're selling food out of their houses. They're doing all kinds of things like that. Let them do it. Why are we even interfering? Why are we wasting our time trying to figure out what fees we're gonna charge them and how much we're gonna charge them? Stop it all. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with, oh, go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, no,
Why don't you go first?
I'm glad that we were able to work swiftly to address the feedback, and I understand why at the time the council did it, because it could have been seen as a substantive change, and it's good to give it more public process if we had it just amended it at the last meeting. So I think, well, I know that's annoying and frustrating for the resident. I think it is probably best practice process to follow. And just speaking of the LI district, kind of a little bit off topic, but I did see yesterday in the paper, the Hamiltons are going to have a memorial put up on Beach Ridge Speedway. So I'm hoping when that happens, the council may want to do some sort of proclamation or ceremony. It sounds like it's not going to be until next spring that it's going to be put in. But I think, honoring our history, which the Hamiltons are graciously kind of leading the way for that, and that area, I think, is just something we shouldn't lose sight of. So we won't forget about the LI district.
You very well said. You stole all of my talking points. I should not have let you go first. Any other council comment? No, thank you again, Denise, for bringing this forward to our attention. And again, I'm glad that we didn't try and make the amendment on the fly. I think that just having, slowing down and taking the right process, and even though it, involves one or two more meetings, I think was the right call on this. So I appreciate the council's attention to this. At this time, I will call the vote. Any other comment? Okay. All right. All those in favor? Great. Show that as unanimous. Order number 25-086 is a first reading and refer to the planning board the proposed amendments to chapter 405 zoning ordinance, section 12 sign regulations, section J temporary signs, to add roadway sign sections to the list of ecologically sensitive areas and scenic views protected, and to add intersections to the prohibited intersections list for temporary signs. Autumn.
Thank you once again. Our town has a sign ordinance in our zoning district that allows temporary signs to be placed in the rights of way for periods not to exceed 12 weeks in a calendar year. And those signs have specific requirements. They have to be labeled with who put them there and for what organization, and we have spacing requirements. But we also have some regulations in place that those signs may not be placed in a position that will obstruct or impair vision or impede traffic. And we have similar requirements for general permanent sign standards. Before you tonight are some proposed amendments that came up through staff observation and being myself and my code enforcement group, and then further conversations with a project manager at the Downs about the intersection specifically at Payne Road, and Scarborough Downs Road, seeing just a proliferation of temporary signs, and some of those being folks in the Downs themselves, but just noticing that those intersections have gotten a little cluttered. And so went through the ordinance, and at this time, we're proposing that the Route 1 and Scarborough Downs Road intersection and the Payne Road, Scarborough Downs Road intersection be added to our list prohibiting temporary signs. In the conversations with internally and staff, the town engineer also requested that we add Highland Avenue and Chamberlain Road intersection to that same prohibition for temporary signs. This is a strange angle when you approach that intersection, and anything that prohibits visibility is really becoming a hindrance. So that's part of it. And then for the street segments that would prohibit temporary signs, we are requesting Scarborough Downs Road from Route 1 to Hackamore Avenue, and then from Payne Road back to Innovation Drive. The reason for the break and not the whole thing is the town has not accepted the entire roadway. I would suspect that when we accept the entire length of Scarborough Downs Drive, we would come back and amend that. This specific zoning district has very 0 to 5 feet setbacks. And so you have a narrow roadway, sidewalk, street trees, and then buildings. And so adding more additional signage to that just doesn't seem like a positive idea in our minds. This did go to the ordinance committee on September 10th, and it received a favorable motion. If you all move it forward on the first reading, it will go to planning board for a public hearing on October 20th. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for Autumn? No, you're all set. Thank you. Anyone wishing to make public comment on this item?
Jim Pritchard, Maple Ave. I raised concerns at the ordinance committee about this process. I feel that we're catering to a developer, for one thing, by ordinance. Secondly, and most importantly, there is no supported documents presented at any time that a member of the staff, public, or whatever could say they don't want the signs there, I feel is arbitrary and capricious. There has to be a formal process in order to move something like this forward. I just see if we continue doing it with political signs or whatever, the town's going to get accused of interfering with elections. So I would suggest that we table this until we come up with a formal process as to how to control signs in the intersections. The one intersection that I really objected to was Market and Haggis, which is very little traffic right now. How can you say that's a safety area? Other than the developer saying, I might have the wrong road, Tom.
That one is included for an idea for future, but not at this time.
All right. I still feel this should be tabled.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment?
Denise Hamilton, 2 Rod Road. I agree. When the very little I read, it was like, this sounds like it's all about Scarborough Downs and the developer. I'd like to see data where these signs are causing a problem for safety. Are there accidents? What data is out there to show that this is a problem? They're They're low to the ground. They're not up high. They're not in the way of people driving. Whereas we're going to be dealing with Holmes Road, having our stop bar pushed back with zero visibility to the left. These signs are low to the ground, and I think we have bigger fish to fry in this town than these temporary signage.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Council discussion. Yeah, Councilor Donovan.
Hearing the comments that were being made, it seems to me that sending this to the planning board allows for the kind of analysis that you're talking about. So I would expect that the planning board would take a careful look in light of the kind of comments, public comments that we received, which I think were appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilor Doherty.
I make a motion to table.
Councilor Doherty has made a motion to table. Is there a second? Point of order.
Is there further discussion on the table motion?
No. Okay.
Just looking for some more discussion here before we table this.
Sure. Not seeing a second on Councilor Doherty's motion to table.
Can I make a statement? If he seconds that there'll be more discussion.
No, if we table it, then it's off the table and we don't talk about it. And I would like to table it to a date certain, if that is the desire of the council. But at this point, there has not been a second on the motion to table, so we'll just continue with discussion for now. Yeah, Councilor Fellows. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. There is a process for this and we're following it. We have an ordinance that includes regulations for signs. We have a professional planning and code staff that looks at this regularly. The sign regulations are based on best practices for things like view sheds and safety and sight lines. And if I had my personal druthers as someone who ran for office last fall and had to deal with signs all over town, I'd love to get rid of all the signs. Just as a, speaking as a citizen, they do clutter things and during political season, it creates a little bit of an arms race. But in terms of the matter at hand here and the ordinances that we're actually working within, this seems to me like a perfectly reasonable proposal. And, I know I'm not discounting that there are other issues in town, but I don't think it's appropriate to table this because people are concerned about things elsewhere in town. I'd certainly be open to consideration of further restrictions in other parts of town. I also just want to say, I think it's possible for something to involve the Downs and still be a good idea. I know that may be hard to believe, but I think one of my hopes going forward is that we can, as a community, try to move past this sort of knee-jerk sentiment that seems to be out there that everything that involves the Downs is somehow inappropriate or that we're catering to developers. And I say that respectfully. I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but as soon as I saw this and I saw that the Downs was referenced in the memo, I knew that there were going to be some of these concerns. But I think looking at this strictly through the ordinance and the staff process that's been followed, I think it's appropriate to move it forward for further consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Other council discussion? Councilor Kane.
Yes, I'm not opposed to moving it forward so much, but kind of more of a sentiment thing. I like the tradition of this type of signage for politics, for advocacy, for people that in the community that are organized and putting out in favor of an issue or opposed to an issue. And so I'd like to have us resist restricting this further and further. I did have one question that the Scarborough Downs Roads additions are in the ecologically sensitive and scenic view section, which I don't think I'll receive any argument that those intersections are not scenic or ecologically sensitive. But I would think that you would use the existing restrictions on high traffic intersections, which, you know, restricts where the signs can be in proximity to the intersection itself. And then I also want to think of the small business people who use this. There's less and less local advertising opportunities in town. And like I said, it's inexpensive, so a small business person can afford and benefit from this advertising. And so my general opinion would be to try to restrict it, not any more than it already is. I understand those two intersections with the Downs are high traffic. I almost got hit there putting my political signs out. But in general, like, my sentiment is not to restrict this further than it already is.
Thank you, Counselor Kane. Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, I think what Counselor Kane just mentioned, I'd be really interested for the planning board when this goes to them, for them to discuss that as well and see if it makes more sense to maybe move those two into the other section and do something different. So I'd be interested in that feedback, and I would also support if there was an amendment at the next time we did this to move something like that.
For me personally, oh, sorry, Scott, I'll go and then I'll call on you. For me personally, I am curious what the planning board has to say. Certainly, I think that this is a reasonable request and proposal being put together by staff. And so at this point, I would not be in favor of tabling. I think it's perfectly reasonable to send this to the planning board as presented and see what they have to say for feedback. And as Counselor Anderson mentioned, I would be open to amendments based on their feedback as well. Counselor Doherty.
Yeah, I was just doing what I was told by my bosses, the public, what to do. So I guess the other option we have is the signage thing in town is fine the way it is. We've got it's been hashed over by other councils many times and it's quite restrictive. And we can just kill it right now instead of dragging it down the road. Let's not, wait, and let's just kill it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Show that as 5-1. Thank you. Order number 25-087 is first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading on the proposed amendments to Chapter 313A, the Town of Scarborough Property Tax Assistance Ordinance. And this is coming to us from Counselor Kane.
Thank you. This came out of some feedback that I had as I was campaigning for this seat and hearing from seniors in particular about the cost of owning a home in Scarborough and particularly the operating cost. So I had made a commitment to try to do something with this with very enthusiastic help from town staff. We figured out it was easier to amend the existing property relief ordinance. And so I put forward right now the current ordinance has a $1,000 rebate for seniors that are 62 and older with a household gross income limit of $60,000. They have to have lived in town for 10 years and the maximum benefit they could get is $1,000. So what this amendment is proposing is to increase that to $1,200. And it was originally tied a little bit to the expected increase in property taxes related to the school project. And I have a particular sensitivity around that. Seniors have paid their fair share already of supporting schools and the other community services. So that I felt like anything we could do to mitigate that impact would be important. The financials of it is that right now there's roughly 500 participants that take part in the current program. A $200 increase would cost the town $100,000 over what we're currently paying for this program. It roughly right now costs $500,000 a year to the town, and this would make it $600,000. And not insensitive that this is putting a little bit more burden on everybody else in town to give this relief to seniors. It would increase the average annual tax bill based on a $600,000 valuation by $6. So I felt like that was a very reasonable ask for the rest of the community.
Thank you, Counselor Kane. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Council discussion. Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to thank Counselor Kane for thoughtfully thinking about our residents, particularly as it relates to, you know, incremental investments that we may need to make in infrastructure and how that could impact them. And, you know, regardless of whether the school passes or not, you know, we have traffic things to fix, we have stormwater issues, we have vulnerability assessment. So as those things get prioritized and we figure out how, and future councils figure out how those get spent, I think it's important that we help those most vulnerable to stay in their homes. And I think every dollar helps a little bit. One of the things that we had talked about in finance when this was brought up that I would just be interested in getting the temperature of the council is, do we want to see some sort of escalator in this ordinance where, you know, every couple of years there's an automatic increase so that we're not constantly updating it? Or does it make sense to wait and see? I mean, I'm open to both. It was just a conversation that we had that's not currently in the ordinance, and it's not something that other towns do. So I just wanted to throw that out there so that way we're making sure that with inflation and things, the dollar value is keeping up with what's happening, you know, economically.
Thank you. Other council comments? Yeah, Counselor Donovan.
John makes a good point. I mean, there may be elements of our fee charges that deserve a renewed increase or decrease. But I'd want to know what other towns have ever done with that concept. I fully endorse Councilor Kane's comments in furtherance of the support of seniors, particularly seniors who can't afford the cost of paying for their bills.
Yeah, other council comments? Counselor Doherty?
Yeah, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't think it's anywhere near enough. I think there's many other states that make laws that seniors, their taxes are frozen where there are no increases for the rest of their life. You know, once they hit 65, it doesn't go up at all. And there's some states that they don't pay taxes at all, very few. But I think that's something we should be looking at. I mean, the state has all these stupid mandates coming down, but this is one that they probably should do. And maybe we could do it ourselves and just, you know, younger people have to pay the bill, I guess, you know. If you want the new schools, you want all this new stuff and all this luxury stuff, well, you're going to pay for it. The seniors, you get to the community center. It's been tried for many years, 30 years we've been trying to do this. And the seniors, it was a senior center. And the senior says, no, I want to keep my home. If you build a senior center, my taxes are going to go up and I'm going to lose my home, but I'll have a place I can go play bingo at, you know? And so that doesn't make sense. So that's another issue, but no, I guess I'll be for this. I almost am opposed to it because it's not enough, but at least it's something, it's a start. But I think we should really come up with a plan of to give them complete, you know, just freeze their taxes at what it is. They can't have an increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Fellows?
Thank you. I also appreciate Counselor Kane coming right out of the gate and bringing this forward. You know, we've talked a lot about affordable housing, so to speak, and housing affordability, and I think this is an aspect of it that's critical, is in helping people to be able to afford the homes that they're already in. I agree it would be great to do more, but as one of the things I appreciate about this proposal is it's transparent about the fact that, it all has to be paid for ultimately, so it is a little bit of a shift. I think the magnitude of the shift as it's modeled is appropriate. As to the question, and by the way, I did watch the finance committee meeting, which is well worth a watch if anybody, next time the Sox have an off day. That's a good use of your time. There's a lot of good material in there. But I did see the discussion around whether it might make sense to have kind of an automatic escalator built in. And I tend to agree with what seemed to be the opinion of staff, which is that, hopefully I'm not mischaracterizing what they said, but that it might be more appropriate for future councils to evaluate that on a year-by-year basis or whatever the cycle is, just given the fact that things do change and there's a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're covering everything in town. But definitely in favor of moving this forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I will echo support for this, as well as thanking Councillor Kane for bringing this forward. You learn a lot on the campaign trail. And each of us who has been there and who has really gotten out there and spoken with our residents when it has been our turn to be on the ballot comes to the council with that energy and with that knowledge of what really matters to people. And so I know that this is something that matters, and obviously to all of us on the council sitting, but I appreciate the urgency with which you brought this forward, especially as it may relate to future bonding. Let's pass this school, and hopefully there will be some sentiment in the community that we are really listening and trying to balance the needs and apply the shift appropriately to the extent that we can.
Madam Chair, if I could just make one comment. I
Certainly.
need to do a bit more homework on this, but it did occur to me that there may be a very small amendment that I'll recommend in second reading, and that is just to make certain that this is to be effective for next tax year. We're currently in the period, I think the application closes October 10th, which would happen to be the day of the same day you'll approve this.
Certainly.
So I just want to make sure that everyone appreciates that the
Good point.
intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it'll be for next year. I hope so, because we're not adequately budgeted in the current year.
Certainly.
So I will look at that further and provide additional language as necessary.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other council comment? Being none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? I'll show that as unanimous. Thank you. Order number 25-088 is first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading on the proposed amendments to Chapter 1301, Town of Scarborough General Assistance Ordinance.
This is an annual process. The state of Maine approves their general assistance housing maximums. And we are required, like every other community, to adopt them on an annual basis. And so that's what this action does. Liam, forgive me, the current reimbursement rate from the state for general assistance?
70%.
So all general assistance that we oversee and provide at the local level is reimbursed at a 70% level. There's conversation around increasing that, but at this point, it's still 70%. Frankly, we don't have a choice. We must adopt and use their maximums.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to make public comment on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any council discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? I'll show that as unanimous. Thank you. Item 10 on our agenda this evening is non-action items. I do not have any. Item 11 is council member comments. Councilor Anderson?
Yeah. So I just want to first to Scott say, I respect your opinions and I think you're great on the council. I'm sorry if you feel like you're being targeted by staff, but at the same time, we all swore when we made our oath that we would uphold our laws, and our staff's job is to enforce those laws. And so I just hope you can continue to treat our staff with the dignity and respect that they deserve for the hard work and time that they put in. I know you may not agree with some of the ordinances, but you are in a unique position, unlike many people in our community, where you can actually bring forward an amendment. So if there are laws that we have that you don't like, you more than, only 6 of us more than you have the ability to change them. So if you don't like what we're doing, or if you don't like the laws we have, bring an amendment forward. That's the way to address it. Berating staff publicly is not okay.
Thank you. Other council comment? Counselor Doherty.
I was done, but now I can't be. You know, this last incident wasn't about a law or ordinance or anything. It was just outright harassment. Because I grounded my boat out where I always have, and he just had to find something to come harass me about, you know? So you talk about respect. And I figured me doing this right here is the most punishment I could give him. And that's why I picked this way to bring it up. And I think it should be right out in the public. I confront stuff head on and directly, and this is how I'll do it every time.
Other council comment? I apologize for being off tonight. I don't know. I usually, Bill's looking at me like he doesn't know what I'm talking about. I messed up twice during the reading of the ordinance. I messed up a Roman numeral at one point. Like I'm all over the place. And so I appreciate that Bill is laughing and showing me grace as always. I hope that the community really continues to seek information about the school building project. I was really thrilled to have Matthew here this evening. Unfortunately, we were not able to coordinate and offer our platform as a council forum just because of scheduling. The school department has about 1 million things on their schedule. But that certainly does not mean that I am not open to using the council platform to engage our residents on this topic as we get closer to the election. And so any and all opportunities to do that are certainly welcome and encouraged. And I really hope that people will take the opportunity to be really well-informed voters. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Thank you. Enjoy your evening, everyone.